Get all right, guys. Hey, happy Monday. Today again is Monday, July 9th. Welcome back to the TED Show. Thank you. Huge shout out to Caitlin Wong who put all of this together. Let us know you can hear us or see us. Give us a thumbs up and a heart. She's going to leave and then nobody's going to be able to hear us or see us. There we go. We're getting something. All right, Eddie Nichols on. Eddie, give me a thumbs up. So I'm with Neftali Rodriguez, he goes by Neff, and Anna Tanzilla from Camaraderie Foundation. So welcome, guys.
Thank you.
All right. We've had the best conversation. Hey, Shelly, we've had the best. You can hear us or see us. I get a lot of thumbs up. We've had the best conversation. We got to know each other. Sometimes somebody says you need to meet these people, which is Lori Rivera, which I wish she was here today. She did the introduction. And then you have to have them on the show because what they're doing. Hey, John. See how you can see? That's the only thing. I'm old, so it's a little far for me. But welcome. Thanks for agreeing to be on the show.
Appreciate you having us.
Absolutely. Don't we look all squeezed in and cozy, right? Poor Anna. She's like, geez, I did not sign up for this. All right. So give us a little back. Oh, there's Tom Redmond. Tom, we were just talking about you, how Anna loved your show. Happy Monday. And she was moved to tears by your story. So see, this is the power of sharing your story. So give us a little background on you. I don't know if you want to start, Anna, or Neff, you want to start, but people like to know the background. So if you were born and then all of a sudden you decided you were going to be part of Camaraderie Foundation, I'm going to back you up. So if you can give us a little background on you, kind of your why, maybe a reason why, what your trajectory was that changed it so that you became part of Camaraderie Foundation.
Thank you so much. Hi. So I am from Louisville, Kentucky, and decided to join the Air Force. Spent about 6 years in the Air Force.
Thank you for your service. See, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And a couple years as a reservist and a couple years working in civil service. But went in and did the corporate world for about 13 years and decided that was just not my life. And went into not-for-profits about 10 years ago. Worked with adults with intellectual disabilities until my daughter and grandchildren moved down here to Florida.
Nice.
And I decided that it was time for me to move. I knew before I left Louisville I was going to do something with veterans. I wanted to give back. I've had so many of my friends whose young children had gone off to the military and now were coming back with severe issues, and I wanted to do something to help. I got down here in December, interviewed at Camaraderie Foundation in January, and boom, here I am.
And what's your position at Camaraderie Foundation?
I am the program manager, so I get to, as I like to say it, I get to spend the money that the development folks make by putting programs together for our local veterans here in Orlando and in Tampa. And actually, we do some work nationally.
Wow. That's a great story. See, thank you for... That's why it's important, because I don't read very much. So even if you had sent me your bio, I wouldn't have known that you served. So thank you for your service. I think that's amazing. All right, Neff. Neftali. Neff Rodriguez.
I'm the new executive director. I've been on board since the 1st of March this year. So I'm getting my feet on the ground. I spent 33 years in the Army. I started out enlisted at the age of 17, and then I did 6 years enlisted in the infantry. Got out, used my Vietnam GI Bill, went to LSU, got my commission, went back in and retired as an officer after I finished 33 years.
That's amazing. Go Tigers.
Yeah, there we go. Go Tigers. So after I retired and came back here came here to Florida, my son suffered from PTSD. And he had 2 explosions in Iraq, was medically retired by the military, and was at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, and he was on medications. And so they kept doing the medications and adjusting them on him, and he ended up with a rifle in the house with his kids and a SWAT team coming in.
Oh, my gosh.
And so they contacted me and my wife down in Mississippi, where we lived. I was at Camp Shelby at the time, and told us what was going on. We spoke to the SWAT team and told them what was going on with him, and they decided to talk to him and get him out. They talked him out, and then we spoke with the judge and the attorneys, and he was given custody to us so that we could take care of him, brought him back down here with his kids, and put him into our home and took care of him. getting back on his feet, and he's now getting a lot better. Not quite there yet, but he's working on it.
That's an amazing. See, I did not know that story. Is that Joey?
That's Joey.
Okay, so I heard Anna say Joey earlier, and I just remembered the name. That's an amazing story. When you first started, I thought, oh God, I do not want this to end the way a lot of those stories end.
And it's true, they could end bad, and he had no recollection of what was going on because of the medication that they gave. They keep adjusting it, and when this position came open, it was something near and dear to my heart, and so I applied for it, and I got it.
What a blessing. All right, so how did you end up at Camaraderie?
Well, that was
that was it.
The announcement was posted on the
because it's new,
website.
You're relatively new.
Well, the company's been around since 2009. It was founded by Michael and Marty Waldrop, and Michael himself was also a sufferer of PTSD. And so when they got themselves situated and got back on their feet, they wanted to give forward or pay back. And so they created the foundation. And so from 2009 till now, they've slowly grown each year. They started with 9 clients, and right now we're able to serve 300.
And what separates, so give us an idea of Camaraderie Foundation. What is the purpose? Obviously it's to help. I think healing the wounds of war.
Right, healing the invisible wounds of war.
Invisible wounds of war is the tagline. But what separates it out? Because there's a lot of organizations, there's a lot of help because I'm not a vet, so I can say this. I feel like our government as a whole could do a whole lot better at supporting our veterans and our active duty servicemen and women. So there's organizations out there that try to fill that need. What does Camaraderie Foundation specifically do?
Yeah, there are a lot of things that we do different. One is the definition of a veteran. We don't use the same definition that the VA uses. For example, if you have a dishonorable discharge, then you're not eligible for VA benefits or for medical care at the VA. And so those individuals can't be treated there. And in a lot of cases, they don't treat family members either. What we do is we use, if you served during the period after 9/11, you're eligible for our help.
Wow.
And a lot of these young kids are getting into trouble in the military. And then they get a dishonorable discharge, but nobody realizes that there are PTSD problems that are underlying the behavior, which gets them the dishonorable discharge. So it's a catch-22. They got discharged dishonorably because they had PTSD, but they can't receive treatment for it at a VA hospital. So we provide free service. It's no cost to the veteran or the family members. Not only that, but we also expand the definition of the family members. We'll treat the caregivers because a lot of these kids, like in Joey's case, come home to their parents or they have someone they're not married to. So we'll treat the caregivers too, regardless of whether they're meet the definition of legal marriage.
And beyond that, we also treat the children. So we've had a client as young as 4 years old who started mimicking dad's behavior in preschool.
Wow.
And the teacher that she had knew about us and recommended. So
and
that was really
I think that's so it feels like a lot of times when veterans come home, when they're released, discharged, honorably or otherwise, that they're forgotten or they feel forgotten. And then you add the PTSD really has become such a big buzzword. But tell them what PTSD is. You don't have to be. I have experienced it personally. I'm not a veteran, but there are many ways to have PTSD. But we're only really beginning to understand the impact of how powerful that is as far as your life goes and how you think and how you try to connect with the world and become disconnected. So give them a little bit of a definition of what PTSD is and what causes that specifically. Why is it so tied to veterans?
Well, first off,
and their families.
It's not just tied to veterans and their families. Every single person experiences trauma in different ways. It's how you react to the trauma, how you process the trauma that makes it different. I think when PTS first came out, it was really more for individuals that had domestic violence issues and things like that. So you have that stress and that trauma that you've experienced. Well, it's the same thing now in the military. They've experienced a huge trauma. Either there's an explosion or they've seen several of their friends who have died right in front of them. And so they come back to a society that doesn't quite understand that. and doesn't know how to deal with it, and a lot of times expects them to be the person that they were when they left, and it just doesn't happen. You've experienced different things, and your response to that trauma, to that stimulus that's happened, is what causes the post-traumatic stress, which can do everything from depression to anxiety to night terrors, hypervigilance. I know that hypervigilance is something that I see a lot of the individuals come back and
What's
talk about.
hypervigilance?
Basically, they cannot be in a group without observing everything. It's not just being in the group, but they see everything at the same time.
Well, that's because their lives depended on it.
Exactly.
Over
And
there,
so
correct?
how to turn that off when you come back.
Yeah.
It's a matter of turning that off and making an adjustment to where they're not in a threatening situation all the time. But you see the threats. You see the potential for threats wherever you are. We had one young man that came back from his 8th deployment, and that's another new thing. A lot of these individuals, it used to be you would go serve your time and you would come back and you'd not be in that war zone. That's not happening anymore. These folks are going for 5 or 6 times back and forth, and you can't do that and readjust automatically to back not to be hypervigilant. So they come back. We had one gentleman who came back after his 6th deployment and could not go home. He simply could not go home. He got in his car and drove for 2 days, talking to his family and friends the entire time until they finally convinced him to talk to us. And we were able to have him drive to a counselor, have that counselor come out to the car and talk him down, basically, talking back in.
Because they had to adjust to go over there, change their entire thought process, their mindset, how they reacted to people and to situations, and then to come back and you're a civilian. You've learned a whole new set of behaviors that you really can't forget. We had a server here at the club who was part of the bomb sniffing team. And I remember having many conversations with him because he just never slept. You didn't sleep much when you were on that team, but you had to be rested enough so you were alert. So the hypervigilance was definitely there with him because he knew if he stepped 1/2 of an inch in the wrong direction that he and his entire team could be blown up because they were part of that. But that changes you. Everything you do, everything you think, all relationships too.
Right.
So you come back, and if you have a family, you have friends, you're not the same person, and so you're trying to interact with your family and friends, and it's not the same as it was before you left. And that can be difficult for the families, which I think is so wonderful that you also will take the families in. Talk about that some.
Yeah, because it does impact the whole family. And one of the things you were talking about, the technology and the times have changed so much that I'll give you an example. In Vietnam, you went over for 1-year tour, and you spent your 1 year. If you wanted to talk to your family back home, then you would go to what they called a Mars station, and you would do it kind of like a telegraph. And you could send a message back to your family, or you could do the radio hookup where you could talk and then you had to say over and they switched the switch and then the other person could talk back. But you were limited to a 5-10 minute conversation. And then when you start talking about nowadays, we've got cell phones in Afghanistan and Iraq. Soldiers are able to Skype home. I talked to my family. I spent 6 years in Afghanistan in the mountains training the Afghan army. And so every day I would talk to my son, a little one. I have one that's 9 years old now. And so I was able to talk to him twice a day. I'd talk to him in the morning before he went to school. I'd talk to him in the afternoons when he came home before bedtime, and I would Skype with him. And so we would talk to him. And so the technology was there that made it faster to communicate. And now when we come home, you don't have that long transition time from the time you leave the war zone until you're back with your family. It was a 13-hour flight from Afghanistan. I'd go from Afghanistan to Dubai. When I got to Dubai, I'd get on a plane, and from Dubai straight here to Orlando International Airport. And 13 hours later, I'm in the car going home with my family.
And then you're expected to get back to normal. It's not like you've just traveled abroad and gone to Paris and had a great time. You will have experienced things, seen things that the majority of us have not experienced or seen. And so but you're still expected whether your family wants to or not, they want back the same Neff or the same Anna that that served, or the same Joey that served. Right. And that's also an added pressure because you're not the same. You have a point of reference that's completely different. So with the families, though, I think that they get left out so much because you're trying to obviously work with the soldier, the service person who's experienced all of that in their PTSD or whatever they're going through. And you forget that that impact is with the wife, with the kids, with the parents, and it impacts the entire family. The fact that a 4-year-old was mimicking their dad's behavior, kids pay attention. You have to know that. It doesn't matter if we're talking about PTSD or anything. Remember, kids pay attention to everything. He was watching that and watching Dad. And so if he begins to develop that, that becomes a norm for him. Right. And so you're trying to show them how to work as a family unit.
Exactly.
Right. So sometimes this counseling, it's for the veteran, but, you know, like we said, it's for the entire family. We have cases to where we do our intake, and as we're talking, we realize that these two individuals, this couple, they need their own individual counseling. It's not about family. They need to be able to deal with their own issues with the PTS or with the readjustment, because sometimes it's not just the post-traumatic stress. It's the readjustment from getting out of the service and getting into this world now that doesn't necessarily always value what they did and doesn't understand what they did.
That's true. I feel like the veterans that I've interviewed or talked to, there's this amazing camaraderie team. Exactly. There's this this tighter, because you know your life, you're depending on all of your teammates, not just to shoot the hoops with, but to your life depends on trusting them. And so if you're in that all the time, then you come back here and you don't have the same support system. Your family loves you, I'm not saying that, but it's definitely a different place to come back to. So
and it's an impact on the family too, because like you said, in the military system, you know, a lot of people live on the installations, they live on the bases, and so the families, you know, barbecue on the weekends together, or shut off the street and do it in the housing area, have a great time. The kids go to school there. Even when they move to another installation, they usually run into somebody they served with at another installation. Right. And so that camaraderie is developed, that sense of family. And then, like you said, when they get out and they come here, people here isolate themselves in their apartments and their homes. You know, there's none of that really wanting to go out and meet other people and see and do the same things. And so another aspect of our organization is that we do family fun days, which helps get that camaraderie, that spirit back. So we set up like the lake, Roper Lake, Butler Lake, Butler. It was the Roper family that gave us the facility to use. And so we invite the veterans and their family members to come out. The food was all provided, the music was all provided, and just for them to sit down and talk. And sometimes, because you'll have veterans who don't want assistance or don't think they need the assistance, and they're resistant to it. So through this type of activity, they meet other people, other family members, and wives are talking to other wives. And so we get the client to come, okay, maybe I do need some help. Maybe I'm not 100%.
Well, and I think I have a friend, Carson Schaefer, actually, who does group at the VA. And so something that he told me that I didn't realize, but it makes sense, is that when you have a group of veterans who are talking, they don't necessarily feel comfortable talking to somebody who hasn't been in the military or been in their experience. And since both of you have served, I think that adds to the trust factor, right? Because that is a very difficult place to be. I'm sure that they build up that camaraderie, they build up those relationships, and they come back here. Well, I'm not going to understand it. I'm a little more sensitive to trying to, but they're not going to get that positive sensitivity around everyone else. So, of course, what do they want to do? They want to talk to somebody who's been through it or experienced something similar, maybe to what they've done. So what can we do to help? What are some of the targets that Camaraderie Foundation is really trying to reach? How can somebody get involved with you. And as somebody who's not military, is that still doable? Can I still get involved? So tell them some of the programs, some of the things that you're trying to do, some of the outreach.
There are about 12,000 veterans along the I-4 corridor that need assistance with either PTS or PTSD or transitioning. So they need some type of mental assistance. And it takes about $2,000 to assist the veterans. We use 12 sessions as a planning factor. Some will finish it in 3, some will, of course, will finish it in 8, some may go 12, some may go 36. We've had veterans who have done the whole 12 sessions. I'm fine, I'm good. 6 months later, the wife left him. He got right back where he was. So we don't say, oh, you've done your 12 and that's it. We let them come back in. We treat what they need. It's based on their needs. And so we've launched a campaign, started 1 June, which was PTSD Awareness Month, to serve 1,000 veterans between now and December 31st of 2019. So it's a $2 million campaign. And so we're trying to get that funding to help serve those 1,000 veterans. As I mentioned earlier, we can serve 300 with the current funding levels that we have. We're at 177 right now. We get 25 a month, basically. So at that rate, you're looking at probably September, October, we're going to reach to 300 and be capped with what we can serve.
Right.
You've still got November and December coming up. Those 2 months are extremely hard for veterans with PTSD because of the holidays and because they feel alone and isolated. And so we estimate that we'll probably have more than the 25 a month. So we're probably looking at 75 veterans that need assistance. And so that was the idea behind launching the campaign now, to start raising those funds to get the veterans taken care of. And I'm by no means saying that we need everybody to donate $2,000. I mean, that's,
but it's okay if you want.
Yeah. I mean, we any donations are accepted, and that's fine. And we everybody's heart. You can also donate your time.
Yes.
Because we have different programs. The Family Fun Day is one where you can come out and help serve the food, or come out and just sit and talk, and meet the families. We also have a mentor leadership program that we do, which pairs the veterans with business leaders in the community to help them get themselves straight, ready for a job. Because again, when you come out of the military, you've got that military mindset, and you're just not into that transition mode. I know when I got my first position outside the military, my emails were considered rude, because in the military, it's short, concise, to the point.
Who would have thought? See, those are things you don't think, right?
And so
you don't know.
People in the business community, my coworkers, were like, well, he's kind of rude, he just, because I'd be like, this is what I need you to do, and this is when I need it by. Short to the point, 2 sentences.
By 1,800 hours.
Exactly. And so it's a transition for the veteran,
sure,
but also for the people who are with them, because they don't understand.
Well, we have to be educated as business people, as business owners, hiring people who hire. We have to understand that, and the more education that we can get on the civilian side, because you're not always going to get somebody who's a business owner or somebody who hires who's got experience with the military, and so you have to be trained, and you sort of have to have a heart for that, to understand. Look, it's not going to be the same as somebody just coming straight out of college, or somebody who's been in a particular job in that field for a long time, and they know how to play the game, for lack of a better word. Right. It's a learning curve. Yeah. They have to learn how to, and correct me if I'm wrong, you have to learn how to transition from military language, military emails, the way military people do things, to, okay, now we're out in this this business world that doesn't do things like that.
Exactly.
And it can be difficult.
Now, as for the mentors, right now that program is here in Orlando. We'd like to start a program in Tampa as well. So business leaders, that's what I'm looking for right now, to be able to be mentors, because I have to build that pocket of people up first before I can really start matching the individuals.
And how does that work? So just let's say, since we're starting with Tampa, we have a lot of contacts in Tampa. So that would be a business owner or somebody who's in a position to hire. Is there a specific type of industry that is better or easier to make the transition to for military?
It just depends on that individual. I mean, individuals coming out are as unique as individuals in the civilian world. And so when we're trying to pair up the mentors, it doesn't necessarily need to be somebody that has a job. It needs to be somebody who can help teach and help coach.
I love that.
Because it's not necessarily about finding the job, it's about building the network to be able to find the job in this career that they're getting ready to start and the next career.
Yes.
And build their confidence
Yes.
up. You know, how do you present yourself in an interview? How do you, again, like you were saying, how do you translate what you did in the military to a civilian job?
Right.
And so those mentors will work with him and say, okay, tell me what you did. Okay, here's how I would understand what you did. And am I right? Okay, let's put that in your resume. So let's work your resume up.
Right.
So they teach them how to present themselves, how to dress. You know, one of the things in the military, we didn't have to decide what we were.
You didn't have to worry about that.
Didn't worry about what we're going to wear. We knew what we were wearing day to day. So,
Right.
I mean, you know, there was no issue. But, you know, how to present yourself. And that's a big, significant change. And that's stressful on someone who's trying to provide for his family and take care of his family. At the same time, he's trying to put a roof over their
And
head.
it's also, I know it must be hard because you are trained so well in the military, and then to try to figure out how to translate that out into the job world. You could be the most technologically advanced person in the military, and yet it's difficult to find a job out in the civilian world because people don't understand how to translate that from what they did in the military to the common stuff that goes on in the jobs, let's say technology, for example.
Yeah, because you could take Anna, for example. She was a personnel officer
Yes.
in the Air Force. And so you can translate that to an HR person. When you take myself, for example, I was in the infantry, so, you know, went around shooting at people. And then I spent my officer
know.
years as a tanker. And so I maneuvered tanks on the battlefield in Desert Storm. But, you know, there are no tanks out here right now, and I can't maneuver and take a hill or take a building. You know, that's not going to translate well.
Correct.
So you've got to find those skills, the computer skills I developed, my budgeting skills from doing the budgets.
Management of people, right?
Management of
Right.
people.
Crisis
resources.
There
management,
you go.
being resourceful. So yeah, I understand. You have the skills to do that, but you still have to learn how to go, okay, this is what I did here. How does that make sense
In a business.
In the business.
In a business.
And so that can be the challenge, obviously,
Exactly.
that you guys. All right, so we're going to share all of Anna and Neff's contact information, how to reach out to Camaraderie Foundation. What a beautiful organization. I'm so blessed that you guys came on. Lori Rivera, again, a huge shout out to you for introducing me to Anna and her bringing Neff on. And we'll do that after the show. Any parting words of wisdom for them? Anything you want to share with them and you both get a turn? Anything you want them to know?
Yeah.
Just thank you very much for having us on. And
My pleasure.
again, if you're looking for a great organization to do some volunteer work, we're here. We need volunteers in all sorts of different areas. So just reach out. Thank you.
Yeah, and take a look at our website, and you'll see some of the testimonials of some of the veterans that have gone through our programs. And we're helping them as much as we can, and it's healing the invisible wounds of war.
We've got good people out there, guys. I know you guys send love all the time, so send them some love. Again, I'll share all their contact information. Thank you, guys. It was an
Thank
honor
you.
to have you on. We love you guys. I have to get up and go around and hit the finish button. That's how our $4.50 budget is spent here. But thank you so much for tuning in. Please support Camaraderie Foundation. Love you guys. And you guys can say goodbye as I'm doing that.
Hey,
Bye.
Right. Have a good day.